On December 18th. This is the Kensington Planning Board meeting. We have a pretty light schedule tonight, which is great. We'll start with an introduction of those present, starting with our town planner.
Glenn Reed with the town planner. Bob Solomon, second director to the planning board.
Carly Fencing, vice chair. Kathleen Belchtown, administrator.
Justin McLean, chair.
Mary Smith, member.
Dan Desmond, member.
Aaron Benton, member.
All right, Marty will not be joining us, but we have everyone else, so we do have a forum, so we're ready to move forward. I think in interest of time, we can move right straight in to the first public hearing, which is a continuation of last month's. This is I don't have the full wording of it, but this is planning board grant approval on a 2-lot subdivision that has stated in Article 3, Section 3.3 of the Kensington subdivision regulations. Owner Lincoln, 23 MOULTON Road, Kensington, New Hampshire. Also known as map 11 lot 46B. If you'd like to give us a little update on what you provided us with and.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm the Ph engineers here for the applicant. This property is located at 23 Wall Bridge, map 11.46B. The intent is to subdivide this block into 2 lots. At the last meeting, the board requested we provide some additional information regarding the proposed lot 46C, specifically the well location and constructability. Total area that meets the requirement of the septic reserve area, and plan showing the house rotated to be parallel with the existing topography. So we provided updated sheets C2A and D1. The updated C2A and D1 show that the max septic reserve area on the south side of the Hawks Brook. So between the septic setback and the wetland setback, the maximum area is 3,318 square feet. So we also we adjusted the house location to minimize the impact on the steep slopes. You can see the turn into it, the rotation of it, and we moved the well for lot 46C onto 46P with an easement to maximize that septic reserve area on lot 46C, and also to move the well away from Hawks Brook. So as the maximum septic reserve area available is 3,318 square feet on the south side of Hawks Brook, we have submitted a waiver request with section 3.4D of the subdivision regulations, which requires 4,000 square feet of septic reserve area. Is supported the waiver. We provide improved potential for lot 161 for the septic system design. That's the S1 sheet comes in the package. The septic system design should bring. So the septic system design shows a septic system that meets all the requirements for setbacks, etc. Of all the town requirements. We also have a septic reserve area in the event of failure. Typically, the town of Kensington requires a septic reserve area the same size as the septic system, which you can see just to the east of the septic system. The septic system is those green lines, and then the septic reserve system is a little bit just to the east of the northeast. This also allows the well location to be on the subject lot and outside the steep slope area. You can see it just to the south of that steep slope area. And the house location is further from the steep slope area and further from the Hawks Brook and the setback of Hawks Brook. In addition, we are able to, the post location of the septic system is located 75 feet from the well on the abutting property to the west, which you can kind of see from. You can see, we show the well setback in the
Is that little gray circle that I'm seeing on the adjacent property?
correct, and you can see the dotted line circle based upon that's a 75-foot plus setback.
Oh, okay, yeah, to the
Where, yeah, and our septic
primary septic system,
Right.
leach and shield. Yeah.
yeah, not that we have to meet that because
Nope.
they can't create an impact for us, but, we are going to keep that. In addition, we obtained correspondence with Norm Harris with Guilford Well, and he indicated the location shown on the septic plan is permissible and constructed. Our submittal package, as indicated, does include a waiver request for the septic reserve area, which includes all the criteria. It's how we meet the waiver criteria. We can do all of that. I can answer the questions that the board has.
I did have a few questions just in comparing the first drawing that showed the well off-site and this drawing that shows the well on-site. The available septic reserve area is significantly smaller on this drawing.
So if you go back to the requirement for the subdivision, is that would provide a 4,000 square foot septic reserve area.
Yeah.
So that requirement is different for a septic system. So if when we provide a septic system to the town, we have to show a system, that's a 4-bedroom septic system, which is above the green line you see. Plus, we have to show the area in which that same 4-bedroom septic system can go. So that's not what we would consider a 4K area, that's a different septic reserve area.
Understood. So is this drawing a proposed plan for
Construction.
construction?
That's the house, that's the location of the septic system.
Okay, I guess I'm just having a hard time approving the septic reserve area being 3,318 square feet when it actually can't be if there's also a well on the property.
No, if you look on C2A, that septic reserve area, which is, we marked out as 3,318 square feet. That is the maximum area on that side of the Hobbs Brook. That meets all the requirements for the septic reserve area. So we show the well on the abutting property maximum that, which is allowable within easement. But we're looking at basically two different things. The subdivision, which we have to show the 4K, and we're asking for a waiver to go to 3318. But then the septic system design is what we can, we wanted to show you that there is no impediment to building what we want to build on that site. And it actually works out better. The septic system is a constant conceptual location of the house septic well. We're going to actually what we can put, which actually reduces the impacts to house brook and the well and septic.
I hear what you're saying, and I guess what I'm trying to understand is if we write that there is a 3,300 square foot septic reserve area, then the house is built on top of it and the well infringes on it, that's somewhat contradictory. So I do see how this plan works. I do understand. I'm just interested in how the board words the condition of approval, because we aren't necessarily approving the 3,300 square foot septic reserve area. We're approving that plan.
Which does have the 3,300 square foot reserve area. So we're asking for the waiver to the subdivision requirement. But in support of that waiver, we show you the exact septic system.
When I said this plan, I'm sorry, I meant the
Septic system.
the one with the septic system, because with the septic system and the well located on the property, there isn't, the well is infringing on what was the septic reserve. So I'm trying to understand what we're really approving. If we couldn't approve a plan set that includes both of these sheets in it because they're contradictory. If we approve this, we needed to deed in the easement to the well on the adjacent property as part of the condition. Because that's the only way we can get to the 3,300 square feet. Or we approve the other plan, which has the well on the property, no easements, and a reduced septic reserve area, but I guess it would be worded more as an approved septic plan.
That's my thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing at the last meeting, we asked for a plan that showed, right, like what he could provide.
Yes.
I think this is the constraint plan that's, this doesn't get submitted. This is just to show us what we have.
Correct.
Yeah, I hadn't considered the idea of the well being just removed from the property and brought in with an easement. It was more of trying to figure out logistically within that lot that we were reviewing
Yeah.
independently. So this came as a bit of a surprise, but it absolutely works. I'm not suggesting it's an inaccurate plan by any means or an inaccurate proposal. I just feel like the board needs to have
It's our.
something to.
Where's the well?
Now planning to the north of 46B.
You see the solid line that says WS that goes diagonal, or goes vertically from the back corner of the house and then all the way across the back of that other lot? The well is on 42B, 41B, sorry. No, 42B.
So Mr. Chairman,
All the way,
Way up there.
with an easement across, so they don't move the well from the property, which is a perfectly legal way to provide water.
I see the point that you brought up. If we showed the well on 46C, we would have a reduced septic reserve area.
Correct.
But we could still have, we could still construct the S1 plan, the septic plan as proposed.
But the square footage and the waiver is actually different, right?
The waiver could potentially be different, because it would be less than
Yeah.
30 feet.
And there's language that talks about the septic. Where am I? I forget which section I read this out of, but subdivision regs, 3.4B2D says the board may specify an area and that the reserve area can only be in that location and it can be attached to the subdivision plan. So if we were to say, give us the square footage of what that reserve area actually is, which is probably under 2,000 square feet because of the well, even though you can put the tank in the circle, it's a very small number. But if the board is confident in saying that that is the only location that it can be placed, and we have proof that it works for a 4-bedroom house, and I think that's sort of how we would have to word that variance. Does that make sense?
The waiver, right?
But sorry, wait for the waiver. We'd have to word it in that way because it is so small. Being under less than half of the town's requested number, I think it would be reasonable to say that's where it is and it's got to be documented on the subdivision plan.
That seems reasonable.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, I do see the efforts to get the well to the top of slope makes sense, just logistically and cost wise, I think it would be much more beneficial to it would help think the well. Just for the board's benefit, if you didn't get a chance to read the email exchanges with the well driller, who I guess is sort of the regulatory system for wells, doesn't seem that you really go for an approval. The well driller has to do it by code and then document it as such. So if they break the rules, they're the ones held accountable. But his response was being within 25 feet of the brook and being less than 75 feet to the septic tank is okay as long as the well is installed in a certain way, which involves casing down the bedrock and the routing. So that just for. So it is I don't know if that's something that needs to be noted in any way, or if that's just.
In the offhand chance we ever see something like this again, it would be nice to have in the record what happened.
How we approved it, that's a great point.
Going forward, yeah. So,
That's a great point.
I mean, that it was information that was absolutely to me. Because it varies considerably from what one would think DES is saying with their well placement, fact sheet.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
I suppose if somehow the stream were to be contaminated and it then contaminated an adjacent well, maybe that's why they want it to be further away, is actually to protect the well owner from public
That liability.
liability. Speculate. While we're talking about wells, I did have one question for you on this is of the either way, the well over, let's see, with the new S plan, if you can go back to that, to the S1 sheet, did the well on lot B move?
No, it doesn't even move.
So it stays back away from the road further?
Well, that's the conceptual location. We can construct it in the location shown on the new C2A either, as long as it meets the requirements of the site setback.
This is more probably a question for my own education. The well radius extended onto the public right of way on the street. And I know as part of what I was reading in regulations of what can happen within that 75-foot well radius, there was at least mention of keeping distances to roads because of salt and road salts and things like that. It's not you creating a danger to the public, but it's to protect that well. Is that an issue or is that not? It's not.
Not for residential. You're allowed to have the well radius over the center to the center line.
Okay. So you only get half the salt away.
Well, no, you can't impact your butters.
I understand. No.
But if it comes to a public water system, for a larger system, then that is much more regulated than a residential.
Is the well radius going through the house next door? Is that what I'm saying?
No, our well radius on the S1 plan does go slightly over the property line, which is allowed to, in a lot of states. But it doesn't, the line you see going through the abutting house is actually their, well setback. Oh, for their well.
I see there was that tiny little W. Yeah, that was just north of where Kathy's drop cursor was. See, it's right there, and that is a circular asset. It's a partial circle radius.
And I think based on the updated regulations of the state of New Hampshire, an existing well reigns supreme. We could not build. How does that work? The septic tank being within the 75-foot well radius from the neighbor's well is not anything that the board or the neighbor can take any legal action about because it's a pre-existing condition.
That's right.
So the separate parts. So the 35-foot setback is the primary goal, and in this case, I see an effort has been made to extend the leach field, which would be the more concerning portion of the septic, as far away as possible, and actually add the design limit of 75 feet. Does the board have any questions? I have one more, and I promised myself that I was going to set a time limit on this of 5 minutes. So, this has to do with the steep slope. We bounced it around, and unfortunately, now that I have read the regulation, I cannot unread the regulation. Regulation states, and I do have copies of this, if anybody would like to see it, we can pass them around. I'm going to take my word. I'm going to put my timer on for 5 minutes. Make it 6 if you have a chance to get your paper.
Do you want one?
Do you want one? Thank you.
At any rate, the purpose is just to prevent unwanted unsafe land use on slopes in excess of 20%.
I usually think so.
The part that's stuck in me as I was reading this is the definition of steep slope. It says slopes having a grade of 20% or greater based on 2-foot contours analyzed over 10-foot vertical intervals prior to cut and fill. That's measured perpendicular to the slope. So I'm trying to get my head wrapped around what this over 10-foot vertical intervals means. The last page of what I sent you is a drawing that sort of shows it so that you can understand where my head was trying to figure this out. If you look at the 10-foot vertical drop, are we looking at the overall slope from the beginning of that slope to the very top where you bring 10 feet? Or are you looking at individual increments of that slope? So let's say you have a slope that goes up and then goes flat and then goes up again. Is the entire thing a steep slope, or is it only the steep parts, or the flat part in the middle? If we're going to be looking at a 10-foot increment. I can't seem to make a lot of sense. The other way of looking at it, does it mean it only applies if it is a continuous 10-foot slope, meaning 2-foot increments of more than 20% continuing for 10 feet vertically? I think they would word it differently if it was a continuous slope. In this case, it happens to make a significant difference to where the top of the steep slope is. And the only reason that I'm really studying it is because that steep slope ends up in Hawthorne. If it was just out in the middle of the field, I wouldn't be as concerned with it, but in this case, I think that there is potential for changes to Hawthorne. There's been a lot of concern from the public on the water quality of Hawthorne and this possible impact from this. So I just wanted the board to have a second to read what I read. At the end of this, now 3 minutes, we will just take a quick raise of hands of whether this is an issue or this is not an issue.
So,
The way the drawing is, the way I drew it is the bottom left corner is the berm. We have a steep slope for the first 25 feet or so. It goes up 14 feet.
this is accurate.
This is drawn, yeah, this is an actual version of the slope.
Oh, okay.
So this is basically what we've got depicted on the drawings here as the top of slope. The red area that we put on the plan. It's basically the top of it's obviously steep. It's about a 55% slope, really steep. And then it levels off for a little while to 10 feet, or to 10%. And then it levels off, or it steepens up again to about 15%. So one could say, well, once you're at the top of the steep 55-degree slope and it goes to 10, you're off the steep slope. But if you look at it in terms of 10-foot vertical increments, that's what this,
That is possible.
yeah, this is all, this is up 2 feet, up 2 feet, up 2 feet, up. So this right here is looking at a 10-foot area, and it has a slope of 55%. This right here is also looking at, so for those that can't see my fingers, the 45-foot horizontal section, you can see that detail, it's the middle leader line at the bottom. That is also looking at a 10-foot vertical rise. And it's got a slope of 22%, so it's over 20. If you slide back down the hill and look at the next 10-foot slope down, I didn't put it on this drawing because I got tired of drawing, it ends up at a closer to 30%. Coming from this square down to here. And then you can see where the garage is. It's 20 feet from the top of the steepest part of the slope, which, you know, with the idea that all the impervious area water has been redirected to an infiltration pond. You're just looking at this runoff coming from that 20 feet and how it proceeds down. But mostly I'm just looking to interpret what that means. Again, we're back into the squishy regulation. If it means nothing, then I think we should make a note to add a warrant article to remove it.
Well, if I may,
Yeah, please.
we always read this and lots of towns have steep slope requirement. But if you have an area which is 3 foot in length and it's steep, is that really a steep slope area that you want to protect? So you make it 10 foot, the 10-foot section has to be that. So that's the increment you think about. Your steep slope has to be for at least an increment of 10 feet. And it's not saying you have to be every 10 feet from that. It's a minimum of 10 feet. So a boulder, you're not going to consider a steep slope area or a small little rill in there and it's only 3 or 4 feet. So we don't look at, or else you would have steep slope areas everywhere. Because even if people should be my yard, I mean, when it drops off, it's a septic system with almost, the rounded septic system. Parts of it could almost be considered steep slope if they're over 10 feet. But this, we always look at it as that the distance is to limit where those steep slopes really are. Because the ones you really protect are long steep slopes, not a 3-foot long areas.
Agreed. From a logical engineering standpoint, I completely agree with you. This is more a question about interpretation of regulation. It's the way it's the way it's written in our ordinance. And if nothing else should be clarified to say over a minimum vertical differential of 10 feet or for a, continuous 20% slope for, because I also read every other regulation in the state of New Hampshire that has steep slope regs. And most of them refer to it if they speak about continuous slopes over horizontal distances or continuous slopes over others. Others say with a 20-foot buffer zone at the top of the steep slope, there's a lot of more clarity. But this is, in my mind, just I needed to ask the question. So time limits up. We've heard the engineers. We've heard my spiel. The drawing may or may not have made any sense. Does anybody have any reason to think that this should be reviewed, or do we accept the engineer's depiction of steep slope as shown on S1?
So do we consider a well a structure?
The well would be out of the steep slope district.
Yeah.
If
So would it?
if interpreted in the way that the engineer depicted it. And if we're saying that it has to be 10 foot of continuous slope, the building would also be out of it. In the event that the determination that you could look at my longest distance, both the building and the well would be within the steep slope district. So it's the only reason why it's important.
Well, you have this drawn with the garage finished floor,
Yes.
it's like right on top of the steep slope. I mean,
It's something on the basement or something underneath it.
What?
Yeah, I don't think there's a basement.
Yeah, okay.
But the house itself is like 4 feet higher than the garage, 5 feet higher than the garage.
No, but that's what you're saying, right?
That's where this is where the actual driveway comes into the garage. So that's the concrete floor of the garage elevation, and that's the approximate distance from the creek or from the top of the slope, which would be. This is what we're considering the steep slope.
Okay.
So it's 20 feet
Oh,
back, which is the distance from me now.
okay.
And maybe beautiful.
That's what depends on where exactly you say is the steep slope area.
Do you have
I
the,
mean,
can you pull the drawing back up? Because your depiction, if I'm not, is probably just from auto, that's fine. That's from AutoCAD. You can click the show slopes at 20% or more, and it's just based on
Correct.
actual real
Yep.
slope area. So that is what he's suggesting is true steep slope. And that is looking at basically the actual physical slope of land that you're standing, independent of what's uphill or downhill from it. It's just, those are the steep slopes. And they're in excess of 10 continuous feet of slope, so it meets that interpretation of the regulation, which is if it's more than 10 foot of vertical change with a continuous slope in excess of 20%, it's steep slope. That interpretation is depicted very accurately. If you were to look at it the other way, this part where I showed the 22% slope ending is right about where those 3 little stones come off of the garage, about midway where the driveway hits the garage. The line that runs diagonally through about a third of the structure. It's a significantly different number, depending on the way that you interpret that.
I agree that it's ambiguous in Britain. I think between the two interpretations, interpreting it as effectively making a buffer area, which I think is basically what, in fact, the other interpretation, the one not here, does, makes essentially a buffer area around steep slope districts. I definitely think that's the way you could read the regulation or the ordinance. I think, I don't see any clear reason one would write the ordinance to do that, and if they did, you would imagine that they would put it in there. And so given that I can't come up with any reason to, that they would kind of silently or through omission create a buffer area, and the alternative makes at least engineering sense, to me at least, this makes more sense, though I certainly think this is worthy of clarification.
Yeah, it's, the other thing that I picked up on in Kensington's regulations that were written many years before I ever came along, I mean, some of them are quite a bit. They are very environmentally conscious. There are a lot of complaints that we get about the 4,000 square foot reserve area. Our buffers for wetlands are very high. And for those reasons, I feel like we have an obligation when interpreting these regulations, not to just say, oh, I don't think it's necessary, it's off the slope. You know, if they were written with an intent to be, you know, when you look at an average overall slope, it's not necessarily a big buffer at the top and the bottom. It just means if you're in an area where you're gonna have faster runoff, whether it's steep at the top or steep at the bottom, we want to be cautious. That was the way I was seeing it possibly be written. And I may be 100% wrong, but I have no way of knowing, so I have to ask for the board's opinion. I think what you say makes perfect sense. It's in line with the engineer's response. Does anyone else have a thought on it, so we can put this to bed and move on?
Not being a planning board member,
Sure. I'd love your important informational.
as my comments were from yesterday. I look at it as the steep, from my perspective, looking at this and considering the steep slope. Ordinance was that it is the steep slope that we're protecting. That's the environmentally sensitive area. And that's why I went through to talk about what the direct purpose was of the ordinance, how I thought the engineer had approached those issues in that purpose section that are potential problems here. As far as redirecting the runoff so that the creation of the home at the top of the slope was not likely, in my opinion, to create an increase in downwater stormwater flow that could have an erosion detriment to the soil. Because when I look at the steep slope ordinance, my take is what you're protecting is that steep slope.
Mhm.
And that the ability of someone to use the land that is above that steep slope, it may have to be engineered in a way that provides safety to the slope itself. And I think that they accomplished that. And that was why my comments were that.
Just to go on the record, because I tend to forget what I say, years from now, I'll make a note of it as well, but if we do want to revisit this to try and clarify that section, I believe that there may be some value in putting a minimal setback at the top of slope, because with this interpretation, that house could be moved 20 feet further back, which would potentially create more of a concern. It was designed responsibly to move it back 20 feet, which I think is great. I think we can agree that they've made every intent to make this work.
Except where they're putting their house is set in stone. I mean, this is just,
From my understanding,
That is not the case here.
where you place the houses on the drawings, it's not set in stone, and that's where the house is gonna be.
The list one is where we're gonna post the house and subject location.
So we have, and I think that's something that if an approval is considered, that we should make part of the approval. They're committing that this is the location.
so perhaps,
Except, I just need to understand this.
And you're right, usually it's
Right,
all,
yeah.
usually when people show home sites and even septic system sites, it's really our best guess.
Right. But so, obviously, two of these lots are gonna be sold.
Correct.
And so is that part of the sale, that this is where you have to put the house? I
The
mean,
approval for this subdivision, I would anticipate, would say that, like, the house location, actually the facilities located on the site are depicted on sheet S1. And that is how they would be constructed.
I think that's very important to this.
I think it's from the point where you guys committed to doing that last meeting, to showing us a plan of the exact location of everything. I think that is a huge part of any possibility for me.
Now, that being said, we're not, the other the other subdivision that we've already approved with the other two homes, we're not saying that the home on the other piece of this parcel is locked in, we're just, the condition is simply keep this parcel because,
Never go still on this one.
yeah.
So the intent was, we're asking for a waiver.
Oh, I completely understand that for the condition of approval, wanting to confirm exactly what was locked and what isn't.
And
Can we just say that again? So we're only talking about one house?
We are only, when we say that the location of the house is fixed, it is only this GS1 that is fixed. So wherever they put the house that we already approved on the upper parcel that was shown as the diagram, that can move, but this one cannot.
Okay, well, that other one. Is that like in the seat soul?
They have much more flexibility. in it.
This one was divided off months ago, this land was. And then they had this section, was all approved as lot 2 or B. And now they're dividing lot B into lot B and C,
Okay.
which is this.
Say-
And so lot B is essentially already got a home site approved.
But lot B has flexibility to move the home site.
It does.
Constraints aren't in
It
place.
has-
Addition, just be that on lot C, your septic, your well, and your buildable area are fixed. Presumably, I guess you could build something smaller if you chose to, but
But so this house, because there's one C2A, that's not, this is not, that would.
They can move wherever it needs to within
Well,
the,
yeah.
regulations.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they have their separate preserve area, they got here, they're over here, they've got a fair. Sort of bigger homes. Would, the board and the applicant be open to a condition of approval that suggests something like any home erected on the property, maybe no closer to the brook than shown on S1 with revision of 1211? That would.
Well, specified lot was.
Well, it's, you know, it's by the septic location, right?
Right, this was just, that was the one approval regarding location of building, since we were talking about steep slope. Well, I don't think we need to dig into, because that's gotta be done by the well driller, and they'd have to work hard to get into the steep slope area and be more than 25 feet away.
Before we dive too far to condition, should be looking more to talk about, here's just the board.
Yeah, very, thank you. I've been involved. Yes, so we put the steep slope issue to rest, to the idea that we are accepting what's here, and we will revisit that regulation for clarity at another time. With that, we should open thank you for helping us out with that, Barry. We can open to the public, if anybody has any questions, thoughts, concerns. One.
Then we go with that 30 minutes.
Right, that's right, John, 25 Mill Ridge. If it can be put in, then the septic is also in that, the leach field is in that location, happy
Yes,
area.
that's what they're proposing here, that this will be an approved configuration of septic and house location.
And then, the current tree line would stay the same, is that true?
We haven't addressed trees. Typically on a small building site like this, we don't dig into it, but are there particular concerns with trees that you, having driven by the site, I believe there's a lot of trees that will be cleared in order to build a house.
Yeah. I mean, there's, yeah,
Buffer.
that tree. And drive, slightly encouraged. But
Is the tree line up the lot line between you and lot C?
yeah, so
So that
there's,
seems to be on, if you look at it.
Oh.
Seems to be.
Okay. Is that cloud? Is that the cloud area that I'm seeing there, that's the tree area?
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, that is the area of clouds. That is, supposed to be trees.
Yes, that makes sense. I just can't, I couldn't read the, I'm sure there's a legend somebody wrote it. Does the applicant have any idea if there are any, intent, or if there is any intent to clear that lot to beyond what's required for construction?
Not what's beyond required for construction, but this is an action map site. So if you look at where the house is proposed in the F line, where the tree line is, the tree line is primarily the applicant's property. So much of it would have to be cleared along that edge to get the septic in the house and where they're shown.
Okay. Is there a way to,
But I got 8 acres or whatever in trees in the back.
I think the public concern is a bit more about maintaining some level of privacy and separation between lots. Well, not knowing it clearly, is there a, if you're pretty familiar with the site, is it likely going to open that up into an open field in order to build this, or will there be standing trees between the two properties?
It's hard to say, because we just show a twin line and, I don't show individual trees, and it's hard to indicate. I don't think we would, I mean, as much as we're limited on this lot, to the limit down even more is, I don't think you can ever reach that.
It's an intermediate for me, extensive clearing.
Yeah.
And from this, depiction of the tree line, it does appear that most of that buffering is occurring on, Mr. Fry's, father's property, which has benefited him this entire time, but may cease to benefit him upon development of that lot.
It's always better to have trees between the neighbors, and obviously, we're gonna try to maintain them as we can, but to make it a requirement is very difficult.
From a regulation standpoint, I know we have some tree clearing references in the regs. I've never gotten into them because I believe it typically refers more to larger subdivisions and larger clearing areas. But because of the size of this lot, it's a percentage of trees on the lot as a whole, right? So you can't really target a specific area to require leaving them unless it's a scenic road. But it is. I don't know if that brings them another issue.
Well, that's inside the property.
Exactly.
So off the right of way, there's no
Any roads for things that are in the right of way,
Okay,
not things that are privately involved.
okay.
All of the trees constituting the majority of that buffer are privately owned. Well, all of them are privately owned, either by Mr. Fry or whoever purchases this law. It just does appear most of them are on the lot that's to be developed.
Well, Ms. Fry, you know, I mean, do you have some of these trees on your property that?
There's some, there's some exactly right on the line. And then, towards the front of, the property, on the road. So those would be on the lots property, but there's like, clearly just like, they're like right along. Yeah, just.
It sounds like we have very little control over trees that are clearly within the lot of discussion right now. Trees that are on the lot line and trees that are on the property are certainly something that we can protect. And then I think we can request that, that lot line be clearly identified prior to street cutting. Maybe that's a legitimate request. So that you can assure, but once the tree's cut, it's really too late.
Yes.
So if we can, would that help a little bit if we could at least request that they identify that property line clearly prior to tree cutting?
Yes. Yeah.
If we had any jurisdiction to be able to tell them they can't do it, we could potentially investigate that, but from what I'm hearing, there's we really have to say.
That's what allow us this.
So in tree removal, it does say at the beginning of the section, applicability regulations, I'm on page 59 of the subdivision regulations. These regulations apply to land applications for new commercial development and applications for the subdivision of land. When you go deeper into that, for allowable tree removal, it does say for initial site development, up to 25% of the total pre-harvest visual area of the site would be site removed for site living, utility installation, construction, et cetera. If you were to take that 25% and factor 80, but I mean, that's
Yeah,
still going to amount.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I don't think there's any need to do a tree count or anything else to suggest that they're not going to be touching 25% of the trees because they're not even touching 10% of the property. Okay. So I'm just trying to keep track of items. Is that something that we can request? I don't know if it's a condition of approval as much as a request or how we do it to request that property line.
You can absolutely make a condition of approval, be the, demarcation of the property line before any tree cutting takes place. So everybody understands exactly where the existing trees lie in relationship to the property line.
I think subdivisions are part of the monument, right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna implement it anyway, so there's no, we have no issue with demarcating the exact application states, you know, every 25, so things seem to be.
I think that would be helpful. I know this does have a pretty significant impact. I saw my neighbor and I think that would be a very neighborly thing to do.
The applicant will be doing all the site work, so he's very cognizant of the trees there and working to him. It's not gonna be somebody else who's gonna be doing some site works.
But everybody, any property that has a tree line is benefited by it. So if this is site work that the owner is doing, they understand the value of having some sort of tree line buffer. It's a huge plus for every property.
Relying on common sense, Glenn.
Well,
I do agree very much with what you're saying. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And I did read your very well thought out letter that you sent into the board as well. We did take all of those into consideration. I hope you can, as I think the applicant did as well. And I hope you've made a note of that. Board, any questions? Nope, sorry. Public comments.
You can say no, it's okay.
But I think about tracking. So, yeah, absolutely. Kathy McFoy, Northford. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get caught up on all this today, but I didn't find, I don't know where all of this stuff is.
There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff.
So I have a question, I am backtracking, about the well placement to the septic with the 75-foot setback. Is that what's being waived? Are you allowing that, did I misunderstand that the well placement is going to be within 75 feet of the septic?
no,
All right, so I just misunderstood it.
The well placement will be less than 75 feet to the septic tank, which can be remedied and made legal and meet all health requirements by casing and grouting the well.
By encasing.
Yes. Which is also how the well is able to be closer than 50 feet to the creek. So they have knocked out both concerns with the well location by the well driller's recommendation to case and grouting
The septic tank.
from the tank, not from the septic, not from the leach field,
Right.
but from the tank itself.
So,
Correct.
I was just wondering about that. You know, the placement and precedence of presenting precedent moving forward with all of this? It sounds like an expensive well. I know they can be very expensive, but
According to the well builder's email, it really wouldn't add much, but I don't know if that's what I'd asked.
All right.
Yes.
depends on how much is a lot, right?
Thank you for your question. Any other comments from the public? Okay, then we will close the public comment section. And we will return to board.
Can I actually ask one more question? Yeah, I think this was answered.
Please.
But, so is this to say that the applicant is okay with it being a condition of the subdivision that the septic will be built in the location on that septic plan?
Correct.
That's, okay. All right, that was my only question. Thank you.
I do think, on that note, I do think that the board should probably give a little bit of thought to the future and delineating. I think the septic shall be built exactly as is shown here, but the remaining septic reserve area as shown needs to be retained, meaning the small septic reserve area.
Don't build over that.
That you cannot build over what they have designated as the secondary potential locations for a replacement, nor may they build over the area over towards the septic tank. Because if somebody 20 years from now wants to build a 6-bedroom house or add 2 bedrooms to that and have to expand the septic field, they have to have a place to expand it to.
Yeah, and you're,
You could make that as part of the approval of the waiver, actually.
Right, and
To
it's,
the septic system.
the septic system shall be built as shown on S1 and shall include the buffer or reserve area as shown on S1. And we can get a square footage of what that actually is.
the reserve area is actually a Kingston requirement for the septic system, so your septic
But Jansen,
designer, so,
not Jansen,
what did I say?
you said me.
Oh, sorry. It's a requirement, so it will be reviewed, by the reviewer before it's approved, such a state.
Are there smaller septic systems? I'm wondering if it needs to be, it will be built this way, or if we have to do something to the effect of, will be built this way or in a manner less intrusive or something in case they want to do a smaller system?
For new houses, you have to build 4-bedroom systems. This is one of the smaller ones in our septic system. So not really, but with the flexibility that we can return to the board if something had to change.
I think the board would be open to proposing a smaller system. We welcome that visit. Could revise the approval.
Oh, the state clearly has to. Well, maybe we could.
Right, well, no,
Well, I think
what he was asking is new technologies
Oh,
that would have made it possible somehow to reduce the size. I think there's
yeah.
probably a cost benefit analysis and this is actually a design, right? I mean, I know it hasn't been stated by a step because I.
That change in septic technology has happened over the last 20 years. The septic system standard that was in place when I started in '87 was considerably changed with the environmental systems that became popular. Probably later.
Yeah, problem.
So there is that potential. There'll be continued advances in septic technology.
Yeah, they're doing pre-treatment and tanks now.
Yeah,
So
all sorts of things.
these are added sizes and it's all about just a matter of now.
Okay, in the interest of moving along, I believe we have read Glenn's letter, or at least have faith that we know Glenn's written a letter saying he's good with it. Glenn's reviewed all of the checklist items and we feel like we've knocked off all of the clerical items as far as the voters' names and so on and so forth. There was 1 or 2 items we requested last week. Was it a signature? Or a signature block, or there was something that was missing from. We need to come into the planning board approvals. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I don't think.
We do need it on the plan though, don't we?
Yeah. I know that's it.
NHS.
Did I get one?
You may have thought. This is, I'm not looking at the plan set, but my goodness, I really thought I would have seen it, they hadn't done a signal.
I see it on the floor.
You know, it's funny, is that the reason that stuck in my head is because on the Mylars had to be sent back because of that on the first subdivision, and I bet this copy just has been continued for. I do think we need the
Speaker.
figure to life. Has anybody been writing any of these conditions down? I'm not a horrible writer. So we, he's been reading the tree reports, so spreading her too
I
thin.
could get them together.
So, item number one, property line demarcation on which water, what that's the west side? What that? Kind of the west
So
side.
it's it's the property line between lot 46, proposed lot 46 and lot 45.
Adjacent to lot 45. Okay. Property line demarcation adjacent to lot 45 prior to site disturbance. Second one is add, we call it the Kensington Planning Board endorsement block. Yep, add the endorsement block. That's all sheets.
What's this?
Just the recording sheets.
This block on the bottom right,
Yes, that is what that is.
so that is here.
Okay, so not,
It's just not, but any sheets that we are going to record, we need to have.
local approval stamp over on the left, that's different. Hmm?
Yes, no, that's everything.
Okay, so what I'm just gonna say on all sheets. Just to verify, so.
Well, we're on that sheet.
We're trying to do this also so that we can make a vote and move forward on this, so there's a significant number of conditions, because we have the previous two sheets.
So, in understanding what you're doing right now, and I think before we go down too far this road, we should take care of the waiver request, because that's a separate standing item that the board has to vote on.
Okay.
So if the board, before the board starts thinking about these other things, we should make sure that gets happening.
Yeah, I agree.
And we mentioned that, but I think you said it would be appropriate to tie certain conditions to the waiver.
And you absolutely, any of the things that you want to make specific to the septic system, attach the reasoning to that.
Right,
Why
so
the waiver
approving the
request
waiver
allowed.
for a lesser septic reserve area, we would be suggesting that we are okay with approving a lesser septic reserve area if the house, the facilities and the well are placed on the lot as dictated on sheet S1.
I think it's for the septic reserve, it might just be septic placed, maybe also not, but the house, I don't know if it has anything to do with specifically the septic, right? But it's,
Well, I think it's still in the reserve. So that's what I was getting to the house.
So they don't build upon that septic
Yeah.
reserve.
The house could, we're wanting to limit through language no closer to the, or we're proposing, I can't say we're wanting to, we're proposing that we limit, they can't build any further towards the back of the property because of the slope of the creek. The septic limits how far towards the front of the property. They can get within 5 feet of the leach field,
Also, right, but it's also a constraint.
but that's another constraint. So they're bound in the front by the septic. And Aaron, you're proposing that we do not link the rear setback request to the leach field.
yeah, I'm suggesting that the waiver be on condition solely that we waive it based on the fact that they will build a septic system in this configuration and leave the reserve area that's marked out in this configuration. And that's one waiver. The rest of it, we put on an actual grant if we grant it. That's my suggestion.
How would you feel about, because the well is affected by its proximity to the,
I'm fine with that too.
so it is with the well in its current location,
Yeah, if that impacts our decision to waive the septic reserve, then that I think makes sense, yeah.
cased and grouted as required by NHCDS. Sorry. So then basically what that does is that, and this was the other way I was looking at this earlier when I requested that we showed the constraints of everything. I wasn't picturing getting really creative and moving the well to a different lot. Was what's left over after you draw the 75 feet around the well in this location and you agree upon a septic field requirement, the rest of the lot is building envelope and driveway. That was sort of where I was trying to identify how big that space was. This takes it a step further and actually says this is the footprint of the house we want to build, which is even more.
Now, if we are putting a well condition, I think we need a condition that there will be a deed restriction or whatever it needs to be on the lot where this well is going to be. Right?
This well is staying on,
We're keeping it on this one.
it's staying on the S1 sheet, which is keeping it on.
All right, so you're going, this is what's happening.
Yes.
I see. Got it, never mind.
So yeah, they're basically proposing this is their site plan sheet of their building permit application.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing.
So I have, essential conditions as the location of the subject well and structure should not infringe on the limited reserve area as shown on sheet S1. And that the well should be cased and grouted per NHGS.
That does make reference to the location of the structure, which knocks it all out in one fell swoop. But I believe that because what we are approving is not for just this piece of paper, but it's for perpetuity, that we can't say that for as long as this lot is in existence, that's the only shape house that can ever exist on, which is what we would be doing by saying the structure has to match S1.
Well, I'm saying the location of the subject, the well and the structure should not infringe on the limited reserve area. So I'm not saying that the house has to be that shape. I'm saying that whatever we define as the reserve area.
Got it. Shall not infringe on the
impact.
I'm not sure we should put ground stuff in there, and instead I would go with the well will be built in accordance with blah, blah, blah. Because if it takes them 3 years to build this and 3 years from now, regulations said instead of ground, they want to use whatever, presumably they should be able to do that.
The well shall be constructed,
In accordance with NHCDS requirements.
related to proximity to septic tank and surface water, or they're not even individuals.
I don't
That's
think
the well driller has to do it, it's on them.
they have to follow whatever rules apply for where they're putting it.
We are specifying the location of the well can change. If they say, why do we move that well 10 feet up the hill? Now the reserve area goes away, everything else, so the well location and on the fringe on is all those. Yeah, I think that language,
So I think it should just be the location of the well and the structures will not infringe on the limited subject reserve area, right? Because the subject can't infringe on its own reserve area.
yes. Do we need to make note that we are approving the fact that the septic tank is within the well radius?
But we're just saying the well has to be constructed in accordance with NHGS requirements, so
But
I guess.
but the, this is a weird one because
I know.
The septic reserve area is where the septic tank goes. But in this case, you're allowing the septic reserve area to be infringed upon by the well, but only for the septic tank. Not for the leach field
Or the replacement.
or the replacement. leach field.
I think it should be as specific as possible. So including that language is descriptive and in the future could provide reasoning for what happened.
Otherwise, it will appear that this is in violation of what we're saying, because right in this drawing, the well is infringing on. So we can say that, I think what you wrote is great with a period, and then say, the septic tank may extend into the
Protecting water.
protected well radius to the extent shown on S1. And that would possibly be a good place to say it. Make reference to the well needing to meet that requirement, but we've already said we don't need to say it.
I think we already said it.
Does that cover it?
There are our starting fields.
So I have, I think we should go on this order. The location of the structure, the location of any structure shall not infringe on the limited reserve area on sheet S1. The septic tank may be located within the protected well radius as shown in S1. And the well should be constructed in accordance with HPES requirements. Do we need to explicitly say that the septic haven't said anything about where the septic reserve?
That's what I'm just thinking.
Reserve area needs to be located.
Shall be located as depicted in.
Yeah.
But it's not depicted in this one.
Well, it is, it's the green, and
Yeah.
the backup is the green dot.
Well, but the septic reserve area generally has a slightly bigger buffer area around it. So we're saying the septic reserve area is just the, in this case, the septic reserve area is just the backup leach field area.
Well, the reserve area is, as I understand it, is only there because we don't want to make people come up with exact plans on where their septic and where their extra septic is what I'm gonna call it, reserve septic are. He's given us the exact plan location. So there's not actually a need for a septic reserve area of however many feet, because he's saying, this is it, this is the area, period.
These, we're showing that we have our system, appropriate state system and town system.
Yep, I hear it.
And we have the reserve area to reconstruct it if it goes into failure. And that constitutes our reserve area on this.
Is there anything, does that septic line going from the septic tank to the septic field need to be, can that be built over? And the septic tank or septic line run underneath the structure? Because typically that would all be housed within what we call our reserve area. I think the engineer might have the answer to that question.
Well, I'm with you, Mr. Chairman, where I think we should keep it to the septic reserve area, because that is shown on sheet C2A and B.
But it needs to be revised, because this, we can't approve a septic reserve area that is within the well rates.
Right.
So we'll need to provide a revised.
We're gonna be, have to resubmit, for final plans, so we can reserve that septic reserve area.
So
Which is typically the 4K area that you're looking at, but in this case, it's smaller.
it's going to be like this 1,800 square foot area, and then we're providing an allowance where the tank may protrude outside of that septic reserve. So you're basically going to take what's shown on. It's getting weird. That one's dotted, not green. You're going to take that septic reserve area and you're going to carve out the area where the well radius is. Clearly mark that out and identify it with a square footage or some sort of dimension or something.
Correct. when we resubmit for the.
So in order to try and get this on the vote tonight, how do we reference that here? Septic reserve area is shown on sheet S1, revision date to be determined, but
On revised one. Showing the reserve area square footage exclusive of the well rated, the protected well ratings. Yeah, the septic reserve area exclusive of the well ratings.
it's shown on sheet S1 dated, whatever, would be so easy, but I understand it's like, we don't have
We
that.
can't do that, I would say it's revised.
That's it.
Or as provided on the applicant.
Correct. Is there is no
We
way.
can say that it's provided on the applicant.
Okay, so the applicant is to provide, so we can make another condition that the applicant is to provide us with revised plans
That show that information.
showing this information by indicating at which point we can insert the, when we reinsert the date into that. No, we take a vote on it.
But we're taking the votes tonight.
Okay, well, we got the description.
Okay.
This is
Well-
all just a waiver.
Yes.
Yes.
But Justin, you don't actually sign the grant until 4 days from now or something, right? Like, it gets written up after we talk about everything, Kathy writes it up, and then you write it, actual, like, you sign it, whatever else. So presumably, we can approve it today as revised S1, and then by the time you sign the thing actually saying, yes, the board approved it, we will have, or we could have that new map in front of us.
We would,
What's the,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we have to include the title or the signature block as well and stuff, so we have to buy some plans.
it puts the burden on me to verify that changes have been made in exactly the way we intend.
and I'll,
I wanted to show you this too, this is why I was rejected last time, this D here,
Oh,
like this,
right.
this stamp over here.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna, I have,
So I'm going to suggest that I would like to make a motion to approve the waiver for the subdivision application at 23 MOULTON Bridge, tax map 11, lot 46B. So I'd like to suggest that we approve a waiver for a reduced septic reserve area as shown on revised drawing S1, exclusive of the well radius, with the following conditions. And Kathy, I can bring them to you. One, that the septic system and leach field be located per revised drawing S1. Two, that the location of any structure shall not infringe on the limited reserve area shown on revised sheet S1. That the septic tank may be located within the projected well radius as shown on the revised drawing. And the well must be constructed in accordance with any NHDES requirements.
can you clarify, did you say the septic tank may be within the well radius?
Septic tank may be located within the protected well radius as shown on revised sheet S1.
Second.
Do we need to put a date on revised sheet S1? That's what we were talking about before, or do we just call it revised sheet S1?
well, there is one thing that is gonna get that thing.
You want,
Probably by Tuesday next week. Is that possible?
Yeah, December 25.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting, I'm suggesting December 24th. Is that possible?
Yeah, just making reference to sheet S1, I think it's just it's just too vague. Without some sort of date, we could say,
Yes, if we don't have anything on the remaining plan sheets, that's not necessarily that big, but that's one. So it can be finalized in this
Yeah, that works.
for this waiver.
But what was the date that we?
It's gonna be. Make that date December 24th. The plan revised.
December 24th. That's what I was gonna say, if we could
It's
say,
saying 12/24, 22.
and then it's the burden of us to review to be sure that that meets all the requirements that were discussed today. Very good, yes, sir. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Favor?
Can that just be added to the motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Carl just agreed to that.
Yes.
And then Aaron, you seconded that motion?
And I second the revised version.
Very good. All in favor?
So
Aye. Motion carried.
now we've approved the waiver for the limited
Correct.
septic reserve.
Correct.
That's all we've done.
Yes, that's.
Well, so the only thing that we have to address now is minimal. So I think did you already start making a couple notes of the other items?
So the other things that I've done so far was that an endorsement log will be added on all sheets to be recorded. And that the property line will be demarcated between lot 45 and proposed lot 46P prior to site disturbance.
No portion. No portion of the structure may be built any closer or any, we said any closer to the Hobbs Brook than is shown on sheet S1. Than the limits of the structure shown on sheet S1. It allows for a change in the shape of the structure, but just not to get any, essentially 20 feet to the top, so. No, we can.
What sheet are we looking at right now?
This is not that one.
This is not, yeah.
So we are saying that it will be no closer than, okay, because that one, the other one has it kind of following the contour.
Yeah, that's why this one works, because the back two corners would be the limiting factor. You can build a rectangular house
Gotcha.
parallel to the creek and right up to the limits of the setbacks, I think. I don't wanna create a situation that says doesn't shoehorn this to be the only building possible on the line.
Well, but didn't you want to say that it is a condition that everything.
Can't be any closer to septic. Septic has to be where it is, and the building can't be on septic. Well, has to be where it is, they can't move because the septic wouldn't fit on the lot. So all that's left is a rectangular area between steep slope area and septic reserve area. Parallel the creek, bounded by something else. We're just creating with that rear boundary of the building off the road. But it's.
Well, we need a state approved subdivision permit.
Did you have any other items on the list done that I didn't?
Brett corners along, the roadway need to be marked with ring monuments.
And so does that need to be,
And the fire sheet.
Yeah, have we heard anything from the fire chief?
I want to say that no, because it's the new fire chief. I want to say the old fire chief chimed in on the original resolution.
That's a condition, there's nothing we can do about that, but we should sign off from the fire department, so please reach out.
We're gonna respond.
You will.
You stay there.
I love the confidence of his response.
If he doesn't get back to you, call Bob. He's going to ask him again. There you go.
Okay, so I'm looking at potential conditions. So the property line be demarcated between lot 45 and proposed lot 46 prior to state disturbance. That endorsement block be added on all sheets that are to be recorded. That no structure be placed closer to Hobbs Brook and the limits of the structure shown in the revised sheet S1 dated 12/24/24.
Can I revise that one?
Yes,
This
is no motion yet.
I know.
Okay.
On that, before you go on to the next, I think it should be something to the effect of no portion of the of a building will be closer than the closest point of what's demarcated on revise this one, because if they want to like fill in that little carve out or whatever, then
Yes.
I think that's fine. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. So,
Create as much of a building envelope as possible, not exceeding those code importance.
yeah.
Portions.
And then, my 4, 5, and 6 actually line up with one that's not on the sheet, so. New Hampshire DES subdivision permit, front lot corners along the roadways and our current monuments and the fire chief. Retired.
If I may just comment on the front lot corners, we're actually not setting any front lot corners, because they're basically set.
Oh, they're both existing.
Yeah, and they're currently on house.
Yeah, no, if you're not changing them, it's a legal change, and so, fine,
Thank you.
we can actually move that.
Are there any other movements that are needed? Unless
Well, what about the tree line?
I have it.
Right, lot.
Yeah.
Lot number.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make the motion then that we approve the plan.
Carly, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I always think of things after you've started. Is it noted on the plan here that the zoning board of approvals provided the exemption?
They did have approval, it's on page 1 or 2 of the plan.
Oh,
Yeah, it's on the cover sheet, and that's suffice to keep it covered on the cover sheet of the plans.
Is some of their conditions on there?
yes. Go this one.
And then there's no, is the variance that we voted on just now,
The way, oh, so that's good.
does that
That
mean,
way, should be placed on that same page.
so the waiver of variance condition, it's gonna take me another year or two before I get them all figured out, but yeah, that one.
The way,
The waiver needs to be on there, but it doesn't need to be referenced as a condition of approval, it's a separate,
correct.
Well,
a condition of approval is it's shown on the plan.
yes. And then all of the other. The conditions that tie with the zoning conditions still stand, right? Those stand independently.
Are we gonna, is it necessary to require that the steep slope identification be left on the drawings? If we're limiting the building,
Well, it's already required on the application, isn't it?
Yeah, we requested that.
it's not, only upon request, I think is it required to be shown. But because we requested it, the applicant, are you going to leaving the steep slope areas that you've identified as?
My only concern is if we're going to record this sheet, it's not going to show this.
Yeah.
Because the registry will not, that's.
They want, the report sheets don't have the steep slope on it, but the S1 can. That's sufficient.
If the recording sheets don't have the information that we're referring to.
So we're not allowed to put, topography or things like this action on report sheets anymore. But
insane.
I signed it 3 times last time because there was a line through the deed or something.
Insane.
But we can say that you guys might say that
Yes.
so then all the remaining sheets would be located at the town hall.
I guess I'm just thinking from and again, I'm being educated here. 25 years from now, I buy this property and say, I hate that house and I'll tear it down and build a new one. When I buy that property and I go to the registry of deeds or whatever it may be, will I get any indication of these limits that we've put on the property? Because it won't be on the recorded set.
Well, it'd be on the front page of this, would say everything that we say today, would say, subject to all these restrictions.
Okay, that's right. All those conditions of approval will be listed or just
So we will list all the conditions of approval on the recorded sheets. The only sheets that are going to be recorded are A1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so the conditions of approval that will be noted are either going to be corrected, like if you had show monuments, you would list that as a condition of approval, you'd put the monuments on.
Correct.
But items that are to be continued in perpetuity that can't be drawn will be stated on the plan set, is that? Oh, that's not true.
And I don't think the registry will, reject us on that.
There are notes.
You don't know.
Can you repeat that?
Sorry, correct.
Let me make sure.
The conditions of approval. And we can enumerate them based on the conditions of approval that you have written shall be noted on cover sheet gets recorded.
Sheet 1, 2, and 3.
A1, 2, and 3. So you can say that sheets can be recorded.
On the sheets to be recorded. And the items that we want printed on there are not that the property line needs to be delineated prior to construction, but the ones that continue on that aren't shown on the drawings, which would be the septic. And I'll let you pick that. The ones that aren't clearly depicted on anything that makes reference to sheet S1.
Okay, which I only have one now because the waiver.
So carry the others. But the waiver's gonna be included on.
Yeah, we'll do the waiver as well.
So we're,
We'll show all of that discussion.
And we don't even request that, that's gonna be done by standard.
Yeah, we.
That's always a requirement.
We requested any variances or waivers be shown on the plan.
So then I guess the only thing we need to do is to make note of the reference to S1. And we can either do that as part of that condition, or you can put a note at the end that says the needs, item number 3 needs to be identified on the recorded sheets. Whichever one's easier to remove.
oh, we're assuming I'm making the motion.
Not vice chair.
He's got to write it out, just so you got it very clean.
Very oblique, you're written, I'm sure.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the subdivision application for 23 Walton Bridge Road, tax map 11, lot 46B. With the following conditions. One, that the waiver is noted, the waiver is noted on the drawings. 2, that no portion of the building may be closer to Hobbs Brook than the closest points of the building shown on revised sheet F1 dated 12/24/24. 3, that item number 2 is noted as a condition of approval on the sheets reported.
Item number 2 is the one talking about building location.
Yes, three, okay, so on four, that the endorsement block be added on all sheets to be recorded. Five, that the property line be demarcated between lots 45 and the proposed lot 46C prior to site disturbance. Six, that an HDES subdivision permit be required, and seven, that the fire department sign off on the proposed plan as shown on revised sheet, that's one dated 12/24/20.
Just to get the time date there, but you want the second one, I think it was, you said closest points. And I would say that should be singular, closest point.
So no portion of the building should be closer to Hofstra than the closest point
Yeah.
of the structure shown on revised sheet S1 dated 12/24/24.
And I second that.
Austin. All those in favor? Aye. The motion carried all in favor. There was one item and it was really clerical that I was thinking of that I was gonna ask to put in there and then I got you. Let me see if I can remember.
It's been a long winding road for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have a letter of approval or a letter of acceptance that's been, no decision within 5 minutes. But that, well, the actual experience before.
Well,
That'll be tomorrow.
yeah, because and so we made them go further than that, I was afraid it's not go out.
Knows the approval prior to something prior to.
Barely, if it goes with approval, it's gonna involve.
The more details, one, you probably that's the one. But, we're gonna work on it. Okay. We're gonna go on and say,
Because if nobody knows, maybe we could get stamps and stuff and that, all, it's going to take time, all different ones.
Very, we are post votes. This question is just purely a courtesy question of me to you or. Will the site plans that you are submitting in the other sheets, not F1, but the other sheets, will they reflect the general layout of F1? Because it is somewhat confusing that we have a house depicted on other sheets that's different than what's shown on S1 and rely on.
Yeah.
Possibly it is to drop
drop
that.
that files those plans now to match S1. The intent was to show what you would.
I know why you provided what you did today, but if we're just for continuity, I think it would be really helpful for everybody to not have multiple configurations of the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was.
It's so nice.
And we're looking at stuff, it's a singular.
I think we can. It says, it's subject to being approved.
Aspects of their life.
Isn't that subject?
Yeah, he's making that point.
Just sign it. Use that. And just.
It wasn't picking on us, it's like, there was lots of things, so we interpreted it, it really has to be there.
I'm thinking exactly what.
Carly said to me earlier today, she goes, Aaron's
No, she-
embarrassing something.
And the whole application.
That was absolutely what I was thinking when I made expression change.
It was a little bit. If I, is it 5 businesses or 5 calendar days for approval?
I believe,
Are you talking about the notice of decision?
Yeah.
I believe.
I'm just still very, I asked him, just directly, are you going to sue us if we do not have the notice of decision in 5 days? He said, of course not.
I can do it tomorrow. I don't think I have on the condition.
If you can do that tomorrow, that's fine, but otherwise, he does not care.
When Mary brought up the concern that can we send out a letter of approval until we have that revised sheet S1 and we have the items that we required for approval?
I would prefer that we had S1 in hand when we were saying that we have our notice of decision. It just makes sense. It's such a vital part of it. And we're not getting back until next Tuesday.
I agree, we're just reaching the 5-day issue, which he said he won't do anything with, but is that a problem?
So, maybe if they're talking more, they get it here, okay, we can't, okay.
Isn't he the same applicant though, the previously was upset about the time to receive of their notice?
I'm gonna give them my cell phone number, so if you wanna wait until Tuesday to sign it, when he brings it in, we can all be here at the same time.
You could have it already.
I'm working on.
Oh, it's not-
See, I would be in Brentwood on Christmas Eve day from 8 to 12. And then I really do not intend to do anything else work related after 12 o'clock. And see, here's how we play out. What, they're gonna go to court and sue us for not having it in 5 days. And before they even get a plea into court, we're gonna have time. They're gonna take on this.
What else the right?
They don't care.
Why can't we have it all done and just not,
Because we've already made a reference to a date that is 6 days out, so we can't get a notice of approval within 5 days.
Well, I
When
think.
you get it, so you run 6 days out.
Of the.
If you can't deliver drawings and sign them prior to the date, unfortunately, we created a little bit of
what?
stigma.
We can hand it to him. When is 5 days?
21st.
It's 5.
Sorry.
It's no problem.
Sorry,
It's
22.
an approval, so it doesn't, none of this matters, right? Like, it's an approval, they don't, there's no remedy for, you didn't give me the notice of approval quick enough. It's not a thing. There's a remedy for notice of denial.
We only might have a concern if it's a fraud. If he in fact wants to know what his appeal period is. But the appeal period actually goes from the approval date by the board, not with the notice of decision. So that date is established, 30 days. So if Mr. Fry wants to sue us, he has to have his paperwork in 30 days.
What I'm saying is, can't Kathy type the letter tomorrow, dated the 23rd, whatever the 5th day is, and when he brings it in, hand it to him and ask him to sign the receipt that he got. The heck with the mail.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm the only one that has paid to look at those drawings, receive those drawings, and I can give the letter at that time, and it could be dated prior. Tell you the letter's done, you don't have to come in off duty. I'm gone from the 27th until the 5th. You can sign it if you're here through the holidays, but.
Yeah, I'll be back on the 28th.
And people,
I just didn't, I just didn't want it to stretch out 2 weeks.
relax.
Mylar sent in and.
It's a very busy time. This should not become another stress in a very busy time. It just doesn't matter.
Good, okay. We can close that public hearing now.
But I
I believe we beat that one to death. Thank you, everybody, and I gotta hand it to Terry, that was some very creative and very technical engineering work that he managed to do.
And turn around, but not for enough time for us to read it and think about it. Yeah.
Somebody got this up the other day, do we have elections? Do we have anybody falling off the board, anybody
No, not until
coming up?
March or April.
It's March. Okay. What the date for 8 months? Crazy. I was gonna ask him to be sure that he addresses the next letter to me instead of Vanessa.
I know.
I did see that.
It's not been that long, but it's been 8 months.
You know, that's long enough, but obviously there's to do before.
And we'll look at the minutes, we look for it, like, the road coming for Unitil, that should be the big public events. And then there are 15. Do we have minutes from? I didn't review it.
I did.
You did? Mary's got from, no, anybody else review minutes? Is it something that we can review?
Pretty much.
I just didn't read them.
You want to
I believe it. I got down a huge rabbit hole of us.
You did.
In my brain,
That's not bad, it's the time.
oh, I was up until 1 o'clock after we went to workshop and did most of it that night, so we got home.
On the November 20th minutes, it says, that I move to approve the application with the stipulation mentioned. But they're not listed at all. I have no idea, I don't know what they were, or if there was one, or, but I we usually put in,
Yeah, we had meant, I remember that when you made that motion, we had talked about a few things right before you made the motion. And you just referenced what we had just talked
well,
about.
I did, but
Because in your conversation, it tense.
it's supposed to be part of the motion.
Yes, they were essentially conditions of approval for the AD,
Right.
right?
Yes.
I don't know, we'd have to go back to the recording on that.
I'm sorry?
Mary's mentioning that November 20th.
Yep. For the, ADU at 21 Amesbury. Yep. Approve the application with stipulations mentioned. The conditions should be listed, definitely. Oh, well,
Or they want to say something about, we can approve of this. On this
I'm just
conversation.
gonna pull that up for.
Is anybody, we didn't have, haven't mind, we got one vote. Is anybody else gonna vote on this, or is everybody gonna be the same? We should be.
Nobody else, right?
All right, do it.
Oh, well, it's in Catherine's speaking article, right?
We can, no, we can correct it, so we can,
This is the notice of decision.
Oh,
Maybe this is the only
yes,
condition.
that's what it was, so that's.
So did that notice of condition?
same as to the law.
Okay.
That was it?
Yeah, we just needed to see about waiting the building inspector and the electrical inspector to sign off. That's all I remember for, because we got the septic approval.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, it was 11:20.
Yeah. Moving fire. Electrical. Well, I mean, if nobody else is renting, then we probably should wait anyway.
Yeah, I would not feel responsible.
Well, but I do have to say, on December 4th, I wasn't here. And it says I did some stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says I was here, and it says Mayor's moved to adjourn. I absolutely was not
I
here.
think Aaron was through.
I'm absolutely loving
It
it.
was not Mary.
Not that
It
many.
was Marty, and then you seconded real quickly, and then I said, hold on. That's right. So Marty made the motion and Aaron seconded.
And it just comprised me of the roll call.
You were there in spirit.
Other than that, I have nothing to say about the wording, because I'm here. I'm so quiet, and you just take it on your feet.
You are so.
I'll make those changes, then I have.
I actually, this was a very straightforward meeting, and I concur with this. We can give it a shot, but I would, like to make a motion that we approve the planning board minutes from November 20th, 2024 with the revision requested by Mary that the stipulations mentioned for her motion on ADU at 21 Amesbury Road added to the minutes.
I'll second.
Mary seconds. All in favor?
Vote, and they weren't, they don't.
Anyone else voting? Staying?
Hey, so why don't-
Well, in the past, people have made a decision to,
I mean, I can vote, but it's not a failure, just me.
fair enough, we'll do it next time.
Well, can I ask you a question? No, I wasn't quite sure reading, the, workshop minutes. Because I actually didn't want to be in the next study.
Was it just, we're obviously not gonna do it this year, anything? Is that?
There were too many questions and too many unknowns, and the meeting went until 9:30
Really?
with a very clear determination that.
There were also like people from the public that came and had opinions, which is good.
Well, I see.
It was,
They pretty much,
I was kind of worried about that guy.
yeah, they pretty much made it very difficult for the board to really discuss that in much detail.
So basically, it's put to bed this year, that's all I want to know.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it all right if I just say we, this, the issue on the trees? When we redid the subdivision regulations, was something we could talk about so many times, but it's such a huge issue that we just, everything that was in basically, it does say, something. I believe it says you're supposed to hire folks. It is, it's such a big policy and regulation.
It's not.
But I do think that probably.
It looks like a font second.
I think we might need to.
There's a lot of things like that. If you really bore through the regulations. And then
Probably like 40, maybe even 30.
Things that have impact on large subdivisions.
oh, I think it absolutely, but I think the issue is more, is there a limit to the size of the subdivision that you want to regulate?
Well, I
Or
think-
are some provisions for waiving it? You know.
Well, that's one of the, I think we actually brought that up as a we'll just waive it, but we just pretty much ignored it, actually. But it would seem like, couldn't we maybe put in there, not, it's not all subdivisions.
Right. Subdivisions of greater than 10 lots.
Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there, not to keep it.
There's a lot that I think can be done. The more I go through those regulations, that, and you really try and envision a situation where you would apply the ordinance. You go, that can mean several different things. And I
The
think,
problem is that on that case, as we found out reviewing the regulations, it takes so much time. But, you know, unless you happen to have a year where you have almost no applications, even with the workshops, it does, that's kind of how you get, oh, next year. Anyway.
okay,
Do we?
you do not. The workshop, December, well, we had it in
Did one of
this
this.
September. We don't have one in January or February.
We don't want to.
We start again in March, if I remember correctly. I think we take 3 months off in the winter and 3 months off in summer. Perfect, she knows where it is. We're gonna move.
February, March, April, May. I don't know, okay, that's fine. February, we're gonna have the, delivery session is gonna be on Monday, it's going to be Wednesday.
We take July, August. June, July, August off, and then we take December, January off. So we have 7 workshops a year. These
So the next meeting is our regular meeting in January,
Yes.
which would be the 22nd.
yes, thank you. That is something I am supposed to say at the end of the meeting, which is where I think we are. So, yeah. As Mary stated, our next meeting will be January. What's it say?
27th. Well, the first is Thursday.
Well, it says here 15.
That would be this, I said, wouldn't it, 15?
No, that's right, it's the 15th.
Okay. So our next regular scheduled meeting will be January 15th at 6:30 in this very same location.
And you'll have units over here with that one. Trees on the Malt Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
There has been some comments, going forward with the tree trimming, not necessarily for what they're doing there, but the project that they have for the telecommunications tower if it goes up. The road is only, what, 14 feet wide, I think they said. So if they're gonna put a crane in the middle of the road, in order to put those high tension wires up and stuff, they might have to close the road off entirely and use a gator or some other form of transportation for the residents that are blocked off and for emergency personnel to be able to access people.
We discussed that last year and we were listening, cutting that they proposed and said that in the event that they were gonna need to block the roadway for any period of time, we would need to hire a police detail, proper signage, and provide means for emergency access. So
Do you want me to reach out to the fire and police and just have them make some kind of comment for you for guidance? For that meeting?
that would be great. If they need to block off one for the road.
Well, this, the meeting that's for January is going to be about this. I mean, we already had that.
That's last year.
No, I know. But,
I think what's gonna come up is because it is about city
Yeah.
cutting, you're going to bring the same people are gonna be here bringing up the same issue.
so did, the tower, where is that at? I mean, I assume they haven't got the federal approval.
There's no official until January 9th.
Judgment on that.
No.
So I mean, how do they even have it down in the bed?
Because of the courts. It was a determination,
That's
they
right.
were determination, but the appeal period is coming until January 9th, so we can't do anything.
Okay, now I was thinking of the,
I mean, you can look it up,
federal,
not supposed to.
You can still,
that next step.
you can still put in there for this design because they needed
Oh, yeah.
for 2 years to get some of the equipment that they would need for the electrical upgrade, so they had that approval well in advance of the actual.
Well, makes sense. I was wondering why they were coming back so soon. But it's probably not gonna happen for a while. So.
I think this is the annual union, so
This is the employee.
they're.
Well, I knew it was on the roads, yeah, but okay. All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. On favor.
Everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Oh my gosh, where's my-
Shortest meeting we've had in months.